Hey, yo, what's good? What's poppin'? It's your man, KGM, KG Money. Back at it again. Yeah. So today, man, we're gonna talk about fashion as it relates to hip hop. You know how we do. You know how it goes down on this pod. Hip hop related. Hip hop perspective. But we're talking about everything. Because it's generally speaking. So, fashion as it relates to the hip hop. And we're gonna take it back. Back from the start. You know, there's always been fashion since, centuries way back, But now, we relating it to hip hop, right? So the first people, because like I said before, hip hop is the most powerful force in the world. So anything that hip hop attaches itself to, it's explosive. It explodes. So we're gonna take it back to Run DMC. We had the first commercially successful Rappers Delight. They didn't really talk about, they talked about fashion, but they didn't talk about a brand or whatever. They only talked about, limousines, champagne, good times and stuff. So when we take it back to Run DMC, there was the show. I think it was '83. I wasn't born then, but if you're a hip hop historian, Diddy. I heard Diddy talk about the story. I heard other people talk about the story, but Diddy talked about the story that he was there. When was it the Run DMC? They was on stage, and they had the whole crowd because they had the song the Adidas, so they had the whole crowd put up the Adidas. Then it was shell toes, Adidas shell toes. So they had everybody put up the Adidas. Since then, Adidas was existing back then. They were obviously making profit. They were doing good because they was established. Because Adidas been around since before then. But the moment hip hop embraced Adidas, it became global. Maybe Adidas was exist. Maybe it was in Europe. Maybe some countries in North America. Maybe some parts of Asia. But the moment Run DMC embraced it, even did a song about it, it became global. Kids in Africa embraced, they started fucking with Adidas. Kids all over the world who love hip hop started fucking with Adidas just because Run DMC embraced it. Right? So that was the first group, the first band, the first hip hop act that embraced a fashion brand and took it to another level. So that was Run DMC embracing Adidas. Then after that, we had the Kangol hats. We had the Fila. Everybody was rocking Fila in the 80s, maybe from the early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s. Then we had Gucci. Gucci's been around. I don't talk about the movie before. Gucci's been around since way before then. But hip hop embraced Gucci because most rappers talked about Gucci. Then we had Dapper Dan. Dapper Dan had his store where he was customizing the Gucci, and everybody was coming. He was in Harlem, but people were coming from all the boroughs. From the Bronx, from Manhattan. Everybody was coming to Harlem to Dapper Dan for customized Gucci wear, customized Gucci apparel, right? So that was the 80s, man. We had the Filas, we had the Pumas. You know, we had the, Tommy Hilfiger. We had the Calvin Klein. You know, then Tommy Hilfiger came, in early 90s as well. Calvin Klein. The Filas were still existing. They were still popping. The Pumas, the Adidas, the Nikes, because Nike was first endorsed. Okay, the first black person to endorse Nike was Michael Jordan. Nike was there, but they wasn't popping like that until Michael Jordan, until they came out with the Jordans, right? Michael Jordan is basketball, well, he's black. Hip hop is black culture, right? So Michael Jordan, they endorsed Michael Jordan, black people started buying. It became a global brand, and we see what Nike is today. We see what the Jordan brand of Nike is today, right? So this is hip hop and fashion, we're mashing it together. We don't talk about the brands in the 80s, right? Now we're in the early 90s now. We got Tommy Hilfiger. We got Fila, we got Anichi. We got South Pole. Remember the South Pole, the baggies. We've got DKNY, Moschino's. I put Hosen NY onto DKNY. Miami, DC, wear Versace. All Philly hoes don't wear Moschino's. Every cootie with the booty want the Coogee. Yeah, the Coogee. Remember the Coogee sweaters? Biggie used to wear them. Then Versace, man. All these Versace, Gucci, all these are high fashion brands. Tommy Hilfiger as well, but they got the urban section. Gucci doesn't have the urban. That's why Dapper Dan was customizing, because they didn't give a fuck about hip hop. They didn't give a fuck about hip hop until recently, until maybe 3-4 years ago when they had Dapper Dan as their ambassador or whatever. Because they did the news thing on the walkway, and shit became, it was controversial. There was a backlash from that. So Gucci, all these high-end fashions, they didn't give a fuck about hip hop because they felt like, man, fuck it, we're making our money regardless. But now eventually they came around after the backlash, bro. That was that. But brands like Tommy, CK, all these, they had the urban collection, which they was embraced by hip hop. They became bigger than they got. So now we're in the 90s now. Tommy Hilfiger, CK, Anichi, DKNY, Moschino's, Coogee. We got Versace since before the 90s, boy. The Filas are still popping. The Pumas, the Nikes. Then we got Timbalands. Niggas been rocking Timbaland since the 80s. But Timbaland is a construction wear. It's a boot made for construction. But after hip hop embraced it, shit became global, man. Fucking global. I'm in the Middle East. This country is developing, man. There's a lot of construction. I've worked at construction sites and shit. I ain't never seen nobody wearing Timbaland for construction at the sites for safety protection and shit like that. But I've been to the clubs, man. I've seen niggas wearing Timbalands. Niggas wearing Timbalands to the clubs, to the parties, to the events, or around the area. But they don't wear it to the construction sites. Hip hop made Timbaland a fashion brand. He took it from something you wear to work and made it popular. Timbaland till today is still selling because hip hop embraced it. Right? New York is associated with Timbaland. So that's Timbaland. So Timbalands, right? 90s, we're still in the 90s now. We got Jacob. Jacob is the watch. We heard of Jacob's first from Biggie. You know, I think it started with Diddy. Diddy introduced, but you know, Diddy wasn't a rapper then. You know, I think Biggie, first person I heard the phone was Biggie. Because he made Jacob, you know, he talked about Jacobs. You know, Jay-Z talked about, you know, rappers was fucking with Jacobs. That's the watch. Then which other watch? Then, you know, Rolexes and all that. So now, this is the 90s. Rappers didn't have their own brand, but they was embracing all these brands and they was making these brands popular. Then, they themselves, they started getting into fashion, right? So now we had Fat Farm, Russell Simmons, Godfather. He started his fashion brand, Fat Farm. Fat Farm is a hip hop brand. Obviously, it's gonna blow up. It's like the first. Under Fat Farm, there's Baby Fat for girls, mostly. And kids, I think. So we got Fat Farm. After Fat Farm, then we got Sean John. We got Rockaway. We got Rough Riders. You know, even No Limit, they had theirs. You know. Then I think Nelly had the, what do you call it? You know, even Nelly had his, but I can't really remember the name right now. So Rockaway, Jay-Z, Demon Dash, Bad Boy, Diddy, Rough Riders, D&Y, you know. Then who else? No, Master P, they had the No Limit. Then we had the Woo Weird. The Woo Weird, you know, they got the Wallabies, the Bali's and shit. You know, they had jackets, they had tees and all that. So all these hip hop brands were selling because it's hip hop. These rappers were big. But now, yeah, approaching the 2000s, they were still popping, early 2000s. Then we had the G Units. You know, G Unit came out, 50 Cent came out, they had the G Unit sneakers, Reebok. You know, they had, and I think they had some wares as well, some gear. But in the midst of this, you know, we had basketballers. You know, we had the Jordan, we got the Allen Iverson, we had the Sprewells. You know, even basketballers, they had their kicks, and she was selling. The one that was embraced by hip hop sold the most. So now, when in the 2000s, we got the G Unit sneakers, the wear, all these hip hop brands, Sean John, Rockaway, Rough Riders, everything was falling off. You know, Rockefeller split up, Rockaway had to go, Bad Boy, you know, their prime was coming to an end, you know. So that came to an end as well. Even though recently, maybe some months back, Diddy bought Sean John. I heard he bought it. So I don't know what's going on with that now, but we're still waiting. So all these, the fellow Rough Riders, you know, Rough Riders is, you know, it's a dud now. There's no more Rough Riders clothing. You know, all these South Pole feelers. I don't know if feelers is still existing, but it fell off. You know, Calvin Klein, you know, I still see the boxes, I see the cologne, perfume and shit, but I don't see much of Calvin Klein. Tommy Hilfiger, you know, they're still there somewhere, but I don't really see them. Then you saw them everywhere. You saw them on TV, you saw them on magazines, you saw them in the streets, but now you don't see them that much. Sean John back then, they had chinchillas. You know, that's how big they got. You know, I even think they got the award one of those years, like best fashion brand or maybe hip hop fashion brand, shit like that. But now, what do we have? Gucci's still there. The rappers now in the songs, they're talking about Gucci, they're talking about Fendi, they're talking about Goyard, you know, they're talking about Patek, you know, Richard Mille, Audemars. All these brands is now owned by black people. You know, we got Off-White. right? Off-White, you know, Virgil Abloh was involved with that, but he wasn't like, he didn't have 100% ownership. I don't even know if I think he was like creative director or whatever. I don't think he owned it. But it was like the face of it. So we had Off-White, then now we got Yeezys. You know, Yeezys is like the hip hop brand that's popping right now. But even Yeezys is still associated with Adidas, and I think Balenciaga, because Kanye was like, he said he was like the CEO of Balenciaga some months back. We don't know what's up with that, but you know. But even Yeezys is under Adidas, and you see, you've heard complaints recently. Kanye talking about they're doing this, they're doing that without his consent. So all this shit is going on. So now ownership, man, that's the problem. Sean John, Diddy, Rockefeller, Damon Dash, Jay-Z, all these dudes, they had ownership. This was their brand, and now he fell off. And now the biggest hip hop brand, Yeezy, is not even 100% owned. It's a partnership with Adidas. So hip hop, man, we still got problems. You know, as big as hip hop is the biggest genre of music. Is the most powerful force in the world. But there's a problem. There's an ownership problem, man. There's no ownership. Niggas don't even have the masters. And everything we embrace, everything hip hop embraces, blows up to the moon. But there's no ownership, man. In the past decade, there's been talks of ownership. But think about it, man. You know, I was checking the list of the top selling musicians. It was mostly white people, man. How can hip hop be the best, the number one genre, and we're not even the list of the top selling musicians? Okay, Drake. They said Drake is like Elvis is the number one selling solo artist of all time. Elvis, then Michael Jackson. Then they said it's Elvis. It could have been Drake, but most of Drake's sales is not physical copies, but certified units. You know, he's up there with Elvis. So imagine Elvis, like some kids in Africa, they don't know Elvis. In the ghettos of Africa, in the ghettos of South America, Asia, they don't know Elvis, but they know Michael Jackson, right? Everybody knows Michael Jackson. So how come Elvis is selling more than Michael Jackson? But that's another topic for another day. I'm just saying, if we don't have ownership, the numbers can be manipulated. You know, it's good now. We got hip hop billionaires, right? So checking out all these artists that I just mentioned, they don't have billions. Only Michael Jackson had billions. Elvis didn't have billions. Okay, but you know, we saw the movie. But now we got hip hop billionaires, man. But still, they're not the top selling artists. Eminem is the highest selling rapper, and he's white. So that's just on the side, because now we're talking fashion. So now we need rappers to embrace, you know, to start their own fashion brands and make that shit global, man. Because we got Audemars, y'all paying $400K for Audemars watch. It's a good investment because it rises in value, but it's not owned by hip hop. They get free promo from hip hop, but there's no ownership. So we need ownership, man. You dig? So this is just hip hop as it relates to fashion. You know, there's some more details that are left out. Maybe I'm gonna talk about that in another video. Maybe not. But this just, you know, just hip hop as it relates to fashion. How explosive hip hop is. How anything associated with hip hop gets explosive. But we need to get the benefits. We need to reap the benefits of this of this explosion that we're bringing to the world. You know, we need ownership, man. So let's make it happen to the next generation coming. Yeah, you know, y'all been hearing these talks in the conversations in the past decade. Ownership. Embrace it, man. You can do it. Yeah. So, man, that's it for today. Thanks for rocking, man. I'll see y'all later, man. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. You know, let me know what you think about the topic. I'll see y'all. Peace.